All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Hinckley Institute of Politics. My name is Nick Cockrell. I'm the Managing Director of Community Engagement here at the Hinckley. The Hinckley provides an array of transformative experience for students through internships, forums, and classes. Hinckley forums seek to foster public discourse and civil debate on the most current and pressing issues. We bring in local, national, and international thought leaders. Today, we're excited to bring some hyper-local folks from our campus for today's conversation. This is a student debate between the College Republicans and the College Democrats here at the University of Utah. This event is presented in partnership with the Daily Utah Chronicle, the College of Humanities Recognized Student Government, or RSG, and Ignite Utah. I want to thank them and everyone on the stage today for their leadership in organizing today's conversation. I think it should be great. Today's debate will be moderated by Addie Crowley and James Van Looy. Addie is the assistant news editor at the Daily Utah Chronicle, while James serves as the civic engagement chair for ASUU's Legislative Assembly. They're going to go over the rules and format of the debate here in a minute, but again, I just want to thank you all for being here. I think this will be an important and productive conversation, and grateful to host it at the Hinckley. That being said, the rules laid out in the debate here, please make sure you respect them as audience members. This includes, if you have questions that you want to be considered, or our moderators to consider asking our panelists here, use the QR code to submit them at this time. All right, well, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Addie and James to get us started.
Thank you very much. Our format is going to be as follows. Opening statements for each topic are going to be 4 minutes uninterrupted per side. After that, we will have a 6-minute period where both sides can respond to each other and their arguments. Both sides will then have a 2-minute uninterrupted closing statement. We'll have this format for 3 questions that Addie and I have already determined. And after that, we will have a 15-minute Q&A period with 1.5 minutes per side to answer the question.
For our debaters today, for the College Republicans, we have Dalen Alzamora. He is the president of the College Republicans, and we have Carson Cooper. For our Democrats, we have Ian Jacobson and Tyson Guyman.
We would ask everyone to please be respectful and quiet throughout the debate, except right now, where we can clap for all of our lovely debaters that we have. As we determined already with a coin flip, our first question is going to go first to the Republicans and then to the Democrats. So the first question is, what policies should the United States government implement to most effectively approach immigration?
All right. Can you guys hear me with that? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see so many of you guys who are so involved with us. For this topic, we, the College Republicans, will argue that the United States federal government should have the ultimate authority over immigration enforcement. According to the House Committee on Homeland Security, a report shows that over 9.5 million illegal immigrants crossed the border under the tenure of Joe Biden. That is over 15,000 a day and roughly 160,000 a month. The Federation for American Immigration Reform a study conducted in 2023 showed that the net cost of illegal immigration was over $150 billion to the American taxpayer. You may question the methodology, but this study did not include states where they could not get 100% accurate information. States such as California, Minnesota, and New York were actually exempt from this study. The Heritage Foundation found that the current population of roughly 15.9 million illegal immigrants has a net cost of $110 billion on the American taxpayer, roughly $1,200 of your paycheck. Such levels of waste, fraud, and abuse should infuriate all of us as American citizens, as this places the greatest financial burden to the middle class and those who are the poorest among us. And as such, we believe that the federal government must be able to enforce immigration law, prioritize the removal of those without legitimate legal claims, remove those who are on temporary visa, who use our social welfare, and secure the border to ensure that future illegal entry does not occur. Thank you.
All right. And now for the Democrats' opening statement.
Is my mic on? Okay, let me just pull this up. Here. America is different. Throughout history, who you were mattered more than what you did. Your belonging was conditional on the circumstances of your birth, your bloodline, religion, or birthplace, and no amount of loyalty or contribution to society could change that. But America broke from that model. We are the first durable nation built on equal citizenship rather than inherited status. America does not ask what religion you practice, what ethnicity you belong to, or where your ancestors came from. Instead, Americanness is predicated on a set of shared civic values: pluralism, liberty, and the rule of law. This is what makes America different. Citizenship carries obligations, but it is equal. There are no first-class or second-class Americans. Anyone can become American by committing to American values. That is why, as our 46th president once put it, America is a nation that can be defined in a single word: possibilities. But in 2026, those values are under attack. A growing strain of the far right, led by people like J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller, are attempting to rewrite the story of America as a question of identity. How long has your family been here? What is your cultural background? And what religion do you practice? In their worldview, immigration represents an existential threat to America. Let's be clear. America is a nation of immigrants. Immigrants are an essential part of what makes America great. The real problem is that millions of immigrants lack legal status. In an ideal world, those people should be here legally. But that problem is simply a natural consequence of the incentives that have broken our immigration system. To see why, consider how legal immigration actually works. For most people, there are only 4 pathways to legal status in the United States: sponsorship by an immediate family member, employer sponsorship, a small and ultra-competitive visa lottery, or asylum. For millions who lack close family ties, employer access, or sheer luck, asylum is often the only realistic option. But the asylum system is overwhelmed. With a severe shortage of judges, cases take years to resolve, and asylum seekers are allowed to live and work in the United States while their claims are pending. For many low and mid-skilled workers seeking a life in America, applying for asylum becomes the only viable legal pathway. In other words, asylum is being used as a proxy for a functioning work-based immigration system because the law provides no realistic alternative. But instead of fixing the broken system, the Trump administration has used it as an excuse to deport as many people as possible. Not only does this approach not solve the problem, but it actively harms both American values and the citizens it claims to protect. First, it actively undermines due process. The Trump administration has set a quota of 3,000 deportations per day, which incentivizes Border Patrol and ICE agents to circumvent due process and violate human rights. Instead of just deporting criminals, a majority of deportations have been people with no criminal record. Often, ICE will show up to immigration court to arrest people who are following the rules to obtain legal status. And in other cases, ICE will detain people for months in dismal conditions in order to get them to waive the right to a lawyer and accept deportation. Functionally speaking, ICE has ignored immigrants' right to due process in the pursuit of higher deportation numbers. And more concerningly, there is virtually no accountability. ICE operates with an extraordinary power and minimal external oversight, creating a system in which abuses are rarely punished and they are only accountable to the Trump administration. When ICE agents publicly murder peaceful protesters in Minnesota, there is no independent mechanism to ensure accountability. In a system without consequences, the rule of law gives way to impunity. The Democratic Party is offering actual solutions to America's immigration challenges. We recognize the real problem, a dysfunctional system that gives law-abiding immigrants no choice but to immigrate illegally. The obvious solution is comprehensive immigration reform. And that reform requires a pathway to legal status for undocumented immigrants already here and an increase in the number of asylum immigration judges.
Thank you.
We'll now move into our cross-examination period. Because the Republicans did not use all of their time, we will instead have 8 minutes and 22 seconds for this period. Republicans,
Yeah, turn it off. Might as well. Doesn't
the
matter.
Republicans would like to go first as the Democrats just had their opening statement.
Do you believe that border security should be enforced?
Of course, I believe that obviously we require borders as a country.
So why do you support an administration that cut border security and ICE funding substantially?
So I'm not here to defend the Biden administration's border policy specifically. I think everyone in this room can agree that there were problems with the way that that was enforced. And I think, obviously, that's kind of a straw man, right, to say that we're defending that. But I think, again, what we're talking about, what is the ideal immigration system that we can build? And I think that there are some very clear issues, and the Trump administration is doing everything in its power to make those problems worse and not solve the actual problem.
So I have a question for you real quick. So we have data from the Penn Warren budget analysis that shows that there are roughly 55 million people in the United States with temporary visas, of which over 60% are actually on social welfare. Do you not think that that has a greater cost on the American citizen who's trying to actively right now worry about owning a home and buying groceries?
So those people have legal status. So are we talking about illegal immigrants or legal
These are
immigrants?
temporary visas.
Right, so
That
that's
is legal
legal status. So are we talking about, are you in favor of deporting people with legal status as well?
No, our temporary
So you're in
visas, legal
favor of
status.
having a population of 55 million people, 63% of which are using American taxpayer dollars to subsidize their living. Why on earth should we be bringing people into this country to rob the resources of existing American citizens? You understand the median home income of the first-time, or rather, the median first-time home buyer's age is now 40 years old. That impacts all of us. Everybody here who wants a family, you're looking at delaying that by years. The other question I have is, you have no constructive policy. Why can't you have a constructive policy? Why is it that Democrats are only ever capable of dissing on the Trump administration and pointing out the wrongs?
So there's a lot of things in there. I will say this. First of all, we are offering a constructive policy. Our claim is first that the Trump administration is their approach to immigration is flawed, but we are also arguing for comprehensive immigration reform, which means that we support a pathway to legal status for people for undocumented immigrants who are already here. We support creating a fifth door, essentially, for low-skilled immigration, and we support increasing the number of asylum judges so that people aren't able to exploit that system as the only realistic way to attain legal status, if that makes sense.
To be clear, you want to expand the system that is taking hundreds of billions of dollars, possibly trillions of dollars of American wealth and giving it to foreign immigrants. That's the system you want to expand.
So again, when we're discussing this in terms of immigrants receiving welfare funding, that's a policy question, right? Like whether they should be receiving welfare funding. And I think obviously if you don't have legal status here, then you shouldn't just be receiving public welfare, especially if you're not paying taxes. But I think the broader question of what our approach to immigration should be, and not welfare, this is a question of immigration, is that immigrants are contributing to society, and they are important in our economy, they're important in our society, and they have been throughout our history. And so to say that we should just crack down on immigration because immigration is an unmitigated evil that is just frankly wrong. That is anti what makes America great, and that leads to a path of undermining due process and undermining accountability.
I'm going to be honest with you when I tell you this. So we researched even the best study, the best analysis of how much immigrants pay or illegal immigrants pay in taxes is at most $90 billion. That does not at all average out with the $150 billion that it costs the American taxpayers every single day. That's a net negative. Now let me address the second point. Are you arguing for amnesty for all 15.9 million illegal immigrants that are here in this country right now?
Before we get to that, I want to ask, what social programs are you talking about? Medicaid does not apply to undocumented immigrants. Medicare does not apply to undocumented immigrants. Social Security does not apply to undocumented immigrants. What counts as social services?
Yeah,
in
so
your
social
numbers?
services
is that,
are-
is that the roads we drive on?
At a
Is that
federal
schools?
level,
No,
illegal
it's a broad
immigrants
range
are
of
not
things, including
receiving
education,
social
Medicaid, and Medicare. So what we saw in SNAP benefits, all of those we see illegal immigrants and immigrants on. And like I said, 63% of visa holders are on welfare and social services. But the other thing too that a lot of people don't know,
at
the other
a
thing a lot of
federal
people
level,
don't know
illegal
is
immigrants
that,
are not receiving. Okay.
well, yeah, but if they have a child here, that qualifies, the whole household
an American
qualifies.
citizen?
Yes, who's an American citizen. The whole household qualifies for those benefits, including SNAP, and possibly Medicaid, Medicare, and then the educational cost of educating the children as well. All of those are social costs put on
So
our
do you not
society.
support social welfare programs for American citizens? Are American citizens not entitled to social welfare?
Are the parents of a child entitled to thousands and thousands of dollars of welfare that shouldn't be to them?
So I think thousands and thousands of dollars is an exaggeration. But to your point, if you have a child who is an American citizen,
Really?
if you have an American citizen as your child, and that child is entitled to welfare, right? That welfare is going to go through the parents because that person is a minor,
But who
right? And
uses
that's
it,
how
though?
welfare is
The
The whole
distributed.
household
The whole
qualifies.
household
The quantity of
uses it,
people in the household
however.
qualifies.
Just because there's an American citizen in that
See,
household.
and this is exactly what we're talking about, is Democrats support taking your taxpayer dollars, your wealth, the money that you and the resources that you would use to build your family and your future in this country and giving it to foreign immigrants. It's not that we hate foreign immigrants. We want a world that's better for everyone.
So, okay, to address that point, whether immigrants receive social safety net benefits is a social welfare question. That is not a question of immigration policy. We are here to debate immigration policy, and I think if we are to debate the social welfare aspect of that, then I would say that obviously if you are here illegally, you should not be receiving social welfare from the government. And I think we can agree on that. However, I think that that is a more nuanced position than just to say immigrants are stealing your taxpayer dollars, because as we just pointed out, there are households with American citizens that are entitled to social welfare. And so to say that we should just not give them social welfare, just a blanket ban on that, is, that's just not effective policy making. So,
I think it's important as we talk about. Make sure my mic's on. Okay. I think it's important as we talk about undocumented immigrants. What makes them undocumented is the law.
Exactly.
And our lawmakers can change the law. First is, as the Trump administration came in, they revoked the legal status of millions of immigrants, therefore inflating the problem.
so they're like artificially boosting the numbers.
Second of all, is we believe in a pathway to citizenship. We believe in a pathway to citizenship for people who have lived here, who are working here, who are paying taxes as best as they can. We can talk about
And receiving welfare.
immigrants are only paying $80 billion in taxes. That's because they're undocumented status. I believe we should have a system where we say, if you're here, if you're working, if you're providing to society, come, apply to status, become a citizenship, gain legal status, pay tax, pay into the system. I think we can agree that violent immigrants, people who have committed crimes, should be deported. My question for the Republicans is, do you support deporting people who have been here for long periods of time
Yes,
and
of
have
course.
and have no criminal background?
Yes, of course. They're illegal immigrants. I don't split this world into how hardworking you are. There's no such thing as a degree to which you deserve to be an American citizen. You're here illegally or you're not. That's a pretty blanket statement
minute
there.
remaining.
So I'm gonna now pivot to our idea, our solution to immigration.
So you've asked a lot of questions. Do you mind if we just clarify some points? I want to pinpoint where we disagree. So just starting with the beginning of our opening statement where we laid out our values. Can we agree that, first of all, that America is a nation of immigrant and that anybody can become an American?
Anybody can, but not everyone should.
Okay,
so
we
we
can
have
agree. We can
15.9
agree on that.
million
Not everybody should
immigrants. They
become
should
an
not be taken from all of you, by the
Okay.
way. We should be able to say who shouldn't and who isn't
Okay.
an immigrant.
Or
a
you
citizen,
asked a lot
sorry.
of questions. We want to ask a question.
Okay.
What should qualify somebody to be an American citizen? Let's speak in values. What values should someone bring in to become an American citizen?
They go through the legal processes. It's defined by
That's not a
Congress and the
value.
federal
That's not.
government.
That's not a
The values that we laid out in our case are pluralism, liberty, and the rule of law. And so if you agree, if you
don't
share
care about
those
the
values,
rule
you
of law.
commit to
Yeah,
those
you know,
values.
your administration was
I will
complacent
remind all
millions of
speakers
people
to
crossing
not
the
talk
border.
over the other side.
You care about rule of law, but you let in millions of illegal immigrants, and then you say you want them to become citizens
So
if they've been here for
let's
so
talk
long.
about-
Thank you.
let's talk about that.
Our time has expired on this topic. And before we move to closing statements, I will remind everyone to please do our best to not speak over the other speakers while they are either asking a question or trying to make a point. Thank you very much. The Republicans may now make their closing statement.
As we just saw today, ladies and gentlemen, the left clearly does not care about the working class of this nation. To be honest, quite frankly with you, 15.9 million illegal immigrants are in this country. They're taking away your tax dollars. They're working off of what you are trying so hardly to do, which is start a family, buy groceries week in and week out, and be able to prosper in this nation. The reality is that we can't allow amnesty. There's no such thing as a degree to which if you work here for so long, you become a citizen. That's not a thing. You abide by the rule of law. You come here legally or you don't. We believe that if you're here illegally, you do not belong in this country. Very simply, we abide by, or we support Donald Trump's actions with ICE, and we also believe that, and want to argue, that although administrative warrants have been used by the Trump administration, they're not new. The Obama administration actually deported way more illegal immigrants, of which only 16% received due process. This is not something that is unique to the Donald Trump administration. It's been bipartisan, and everyone should know that. Because it's not Trump, it's not the policy you're against, it's Trump. At the end of the day, American citizens should be placed first. Thank you.
Thank you.
the Democratic Party stands in favor of comprehensive immigration reform. We are not the party of open borders. We are the party of the rule of law. And so that means that if you are coming here as an immigrant, you should be coming here legally. But we also have to acknowledge nuance, right? We can't just say if you are here illegally, then therefore we should deport you, because we have to look at the system that incentivized your coming here in the first place. The way that our system works, there is no pathway for low-skilled migration whatsoever. And so that forces immigrants to go through the asylum process and exploit that system as a proxy for a work-based legal status. And so in that world, we cannot realistically expect all immigrants to just somehow be here legally when there is demand for these low-skilled immigrants, and our system does not provide a pathway for that, right? So obviously we can agree that legal status is the problem, but I think we disagree on like the implementation and the nuance of that policy position. I just want to point out some more broad observations throughout this whole debate. The Republicans have relied on blanket statements that lack nuance whatsoever, such as if you are here illegally, then therefore you deserve to be deported. Again, when we just illustrated that the process is the thing that incentivizes that. And so we cannot blame immigrants for simply following the incentives that Congress has created for them, right? In America, we believe that immigrants are a net positive good for our society. And so there are policy questions about whether we should have social welfare for immigrants or whether we should deport criminals. And we support having those policy discussions, but when the discussion, as the Trump administration has made it, is about whether we should even have immigrants at all, that is not immigration policy. That is a revisionist history. And so we need to step back and say, like, are we willing to accept this narrative of America that is completely antithetical to everything that we value in this country? Finally, I want to read a quote by Ronald Reagan.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Did you say your time has expired?
Um,
Thank you, son. Thank you.
Can you say that?
Thank you, your time has expired.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so. And it's there. No. Okay, thank you for a great first question. Again, we want to remind our debaters to not talk over each other and to respect each other as much as possible. Okay? Our next question, which the Democrats will open for us, is how could the state government in Utah address rising concerns about the cost of health care?
All right. First off, good afternoon, everyone. I appreciate all of you for coming out and for all our partners on this event. To start, I want to illustrate where Utah is on healthcare right now. Under this current administration, Utah is set to lose $559 million in the next 2 years in healthcare funding. This affects all of us. This affects primarily children. This affects families. This affects the elderly. And this affects the disadvantaged and the disabled. 1 in 5 births for Utah mothers are at risk of losing their funding. 3 in 5 nursing home residents are in risk of losing their funding. 9 rural hospitals, this is something that's very important for me. I'm from a rural town with one of the hospitals that's at risk of closing due to cuts. 421,000 Utah residents are at risk of losing their health care. 16,000 small business owners are at risk of losing health care for them and their employees. 30,000 self-employed Utah residents are at risk of losing their health care. This is a problem. And the state legislature, which is a supermajority Republican, has not offered any solutions to this. We propose that the state of Utah should step up and should support Utahns. We propose that the state of Utah should adopt a public option similar to Washington's Cascade Select. This means that people can buy in to a state plan that is affordable for all Utahns. We also want to talk about the root problem, which is healthcare costs. Healthcare costs are something that comes to the federal level, and we believe that Utah should push our federal government to address healthcare costs. First off, is we are one of the few countries that does not negotiate with insurance companies. Under the Biden administration, multiple programs were set out to negotiate healthcare costs. Donald Trump, through executive order, has ended many of these. And it shows. Right now, if you cross the border into Mexico for the same drug, you're going to be paying 70% less. Canada, 118% less. You go to South Korea, same drug in South Korea, you're going to be paying 205% more here in the United States for the same drug. And that is because our government has chosen not to negotiate, not to fight, and instead to give in to the insurance companies so they can make massive amounts of money off of the backs of the working citizens. We believe that the state of Utah, for an affordable cost, can provide healthcare to its citizens, which ensures not only their well-being, increases our life expectancy, it can also help people contribute to society, contribute in the workforce, and contribute to civic life. Thank you.
When it's green.
There it goes. Okay. Hey, everyone. I just want to say thank you, Nick, for being here. In the College Republicans, we call him beautiful, amazing, incredible Nick. I don't know if he wants more adjectives or not. And thank you to the College Democrats for being here. That's because we had Nick hyperventilating in a bag, thinking that we were going to hurl insults at each other. This is terrific Tyson, incredible Ian. This is just Dalen. With that being said, let's get into it. By raise of hand, who here believes that the health insurance companies in this country are corrupt? Awesome. We all agree with President Trump. So the brief reality of our healthcare efforts is this. Our government transfers about $1 trillion of American wealth to private insurance companies every single year. The ACA, that's Obama's Affordable Care Act, since the passage of that, insurance is covering less with deductibles doubling. Healthcare expenditure has increased to 18% of our GDP. By the way, I believe it's Singapore, it's a similar country. They spend about 4.5% of their GDP on healthcare, and they have similar outcomes. And its quality varies drastically with little respect to price. That's not normal in the economy. So in 2019, medical mistakes were the third leading cause of death in the United States. They killed 251,000 Americans. And a leading health economist, John C. Goodman, estimates that for every dollar we spend on healthcare, the system causes up to 45 cents worth of harm from adverse medical events. The problem is not cost, as they say, it's the very structure of the healthcare system that we have. Now, this is a system that from bottom to top has been created by Democrats, from Lyndon B. Johnson to Barack Obama. It's Democrats who subvert American well-being. It's Democrats who built the insurance industrial complex. And in light of their failed policies, it's Democrats who shut down our government for 43 days. Utah needs to deviate from this socialist system. When the problem is resource distribution, we need to seek the help of economists, not just healthcare professionals, lawyers, and bureaucrats. So, while our federal government restricts much of our state's abilities, Utah still has an opportunity to be an example. We can copy Montana's reference pricing, which held premiums steady by allowing insurance companies to pay the cost of the lowest healthcare provider in a geographic area, while the average premium in our country increased 13%. In a state where some people must drive 3 hours to see a health provider, people like Tyson and his family who live in rural Utah, we can relieve restrictions and allow for telehealth services, which significantly reduce costs, increase access to preventative treatment, and all without reducing quality. We can also legalize employers paying for primary health providers we can legalize employers paying for primary health providers as an employee benefit, much like they provide insurance benefits. With regulatory shifts, primary health providers in our state can deliver general services for as little as $50 a month and administer tests and other things for a fee. And the fourth is with respect to a very famous health insurance experiment that found high cost sharing reduced healthcare consumption by 30% with no change in outcomes. And the way that we can achieve that is health savings accounts, where Americans have money that they are required to save to cover the high deductibles of cheap catastrophe insurance. And while the Trump administration works on federal policy, including establishing health accounts with the Great Health Plan, Utah can work on state-level structure and reduce the cost of healthcare while improving outcomes for everybody in our state.
right, because not the full 4 minutes for both sides was used for our opening statements, we will instead have 7 minutes and 15 seconds for our rebuttal period.
To start, I want to clarify a little bit. They talked about the structure. What structural changes do you support to how Americans deal with insurance companies?
I mean, if I could, I'd abolish the ACA. That's your guys' baby. But I generally support health savings accounts. I think it's a great idea outlined by a leading health economist whose name is John C. Goodman. And it's led to fantastic outcomes in other countries, including Switzerland and Singapore. In Indiana, they've implemented similar policies that have led to drastically less consumption. I actually have the data on that somewhere. I'll find it in a second. But and with similar health outcomes. So it's a pretty innovative plan. It's actually something that the Trump administration is starting to model with their great health care plan. By the way, Democrats received a lot of insurance, or a lot of lobbying from the insurance companies, a lot more than Republicans. So I think we're a little poised to address this, and we are.
I mean, I wasn't going to bring up lobbying. Republicans also received lobbying from insurance companies. And
Yeah,
in
I
fact,
think it's about 6 times more for you guys.
There is a current Republican senator who was investigated for Medicare fraud in Florida.
It's an easy system to abuse.
Exactly. And so what?
We should probably get rid of it.
What changes do you propose? Okay, I'll ask a simple one. Do you believe that the American government, through our insurance system, maybe even through your healthcare account, should negotiate with pharmaceutical and insurance companies?
I mean, President Trump has us doing that on medicine. That was actually a policy that he outlined and the Biden administration kept going. And I mean, I don't see a reason not to, but I also think that, again, there's major structural changes. When the costs keep going up and quality is not getting better, that's not normal of a free market system. That's normal of a socialist system with perverse incentives that destroys wealth and quality for the American people. I think that we could benefit a lot by instituting competitive structures into our healthcare system. They've been entirely destroyed, especially by Democrats.
Can I-
Republicans
One of
don't.
the weakest healthcare systems. We really have to do something different than what we have now. Come on.
Can I just jump in for a second? So I completely agree that HSAs are an awesome solution, but they are not like the be-all, end-all of the healthcare system, right? We can definitely agree that the healthcare system is broken. That is not a Republican position. That is something that everyone in this room should be able to agree on, right? Healthcare is far too expensive, right? And so then I think the disagreement that we have here comes down to what is the root of that problem and why do we have such exorbitant healthcare costs? Because obviously, like, if we were to just implement, for example, a single-payer healthcare system, which is not what we're advocating for today, but if we did that and we don't fix the underlying root causes of the healthcare being so expensive, then we just end up with a wasteful system, as they very eloquently outlined. But that's not what we're arguing for. We are arguing for, first of all, a public option, which allows the government to compete with the private industry, which reduces costs. We're also arguing for government to be able to negotiate prices with drug companies, which is a policy that was implemented under the Biden administration, rescinded by the Trump administration, and now the only examples of that are still that still exist under the Trump administration are like insulin and Ozempic, whereas the entire healthcare system was up for debate, under the Biden administration, right? So there's a clear policy shift that's happening under Republicans that they're identifying the problem and then doing everything in their power to make that worse and more expensive for the average American.
So again, I mean, single-payer healthcare is it's a ridiculous
Right,
thing
and that's
that
not what we're
Democrats
supporting
keep
today.
advocating for. Yeah, your party advocates for it quite a lot.
Is that the official position of the Democratic Party? I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't hear it coming from anybody else. I mean, I don't.
Sure, but again,
All I hear Democrats talk
Am
about is
I-
the Canadian healthcare system, which, by the way, since they started tracking it in 2018, more than 100,000 people have died without seeing a medical provider in Canada. That's the system that Democrats want to
we're not
model. That's the
advocating
one
for
that they want to
Canada's
pursue.
healthcare system.
I think there's a crucial misunderstanding in that. We're not advocating for Canada's system. There's a reason they don't bring up, for example, Germany. Germany's system works. Life expectancy is higher. The government pays less per person than they do here in the United States, and the people don't have these exorbitant costs. We can agree that the system is broken. We don't disagree with that. But we think that the structural reform is that the incentives right now are for insurance companies to make millions off the backs of Americans.
And the awesome thing-
Republicans
yeah,
are
go
not
ahead.
proposing any solution to stop that.
The awesome thing too is that this isn't just some kind of brand new policy choice that we're advocating for. This is something that we have precedent for. We look at European countries like Germany, and we see that they're actually providing comprehensive healthcare for their citizens at a much lower price than the United States is currently spending. So we know that this is possible. And the problem is, again, that these countries have actually done what it takes to make healthcare affordable. They've regulated the drug companies, which are corrupt, as we've agreed on, and And that's reduced costs in those countries. And then because the United States hasn't done the same thing, that means that those drug companies are they're using the United States to make their profits, as opposed to actually making those profits in Europe or Canada or the UK.
Okay.
So
every country, by the way, every first world country spends less of their GDP on healthcare than we do.
exactly.
And
So doesn't
it has
that tell you
comparable
something
outcomes.
about what
now,
we could do?
why
to
is that the case? It's,
lower the
what did, why,
costs?
Tyson, terrific Tyson.
Mr.
Why did the
Cooper,
government
please do not
shut
interrupt
down
the other
back in
speakers.
October?
We're talking first.
Can
You repeat the question?
Why did the government shut down in October?
To address the cutting of healthcare costs.
There were
That'll affect-
subsidies
Yeah,
from
exactly.
Medicare. So
the
ACA
Democrats are
subsidies
willing
were
to
ended.
die on the Hill. They're willing to shut down your government for 43 days so that they can transfer more
Okay.
wealth to these
I-
insurance
I-
companies, which,
I
by the way,
think-
have
can I- can
lobbied
I
a
address
tremendous
that?
amount of money to them.
And millions went without food or help from the government that they needed. So this is clearly not an issue that the Republicans are willing to die on.
That is
It
such
the
a
Democrats.
rich statement coming from the Republicans who are cutting SNAP benefits and ending ACA subsidies.
Oh,
That
no,
is
we're
so
cutting,
rich.
that are being abused by billions of dollars by the illegal immigrants the Biden administration led in this country.
I want to address that. First off, with the government shutdown, the Trump administration had the choice to fund SNAP, and they chose not to.
Exactly.
Second of all, is yes, Democrats are willing to fight for Americans. These costs are actual people who are affected. With these costs, children, families, the elderly, those starting their careers. Here in a few years, before you enter the workforce, you may have to apply for marketplace funding, and your premiums have gone up. The costs on average Americans have gone up. And while this is going on, they've allowed their friends at the insurance companies to make billions of dollars. Yes, the Democrats fought for the American people by shutting down the government. Yes, I think the Democrats should do more to restructure the system. But the fact is that we're fighting for a better system. They're fighting for the status quo.
The fact is, Democrats built this system. The fact is, Democrats shut it down to increase subsidies to private insurers. The fact is that Democrats, in every single way, are building the perverse incentives. They're modeling failed, single-payer health plans like Canada.
That is not
which
what we're
have led to
advocating
hundreds
for.
of thousands of deaths. And they built this system from bottom to top. And they won't even let Republicans come in and address
I need
it.
to say something. Hold on. So I think we can agree that the ACA is a flawed solution to a
I'm
systemic
expired
problem.
for this topic, unfortunately.
Can I at least respond to what he just said? I'll be fast.
I don't think we've had an opportunity to respond.
That's what the closing statements are for.
Okay. Make sure to say the ACA, like if it's flawed because it's working through the system.
I think the one thing we can take away from this discussion is we both agree that the system is flawed. The fact is that we're offering solutions. The ACA is an imperfect system, but it wasn't implemented like it was supposed to be. The original system had a public option. It was the Republican Party that stopped that from happening. It was a Republican lobbyist who stopped the public option from being available to American citizens. It is the Republican Party who cut Medicare and Medicaid that's going to affect the most vulnerable among us. The system is not perfect. And they'll argue it was created by Democrats. But the system under Medicare is better than it was before Medicare. Pre-Medicare, majority of Americans lacked insurance, and especially the poorest among us. The system is not perfect, but we are advocating for something better. We do believe we can do better. We do believe that we can lower costs, both on the government and on individuals. We pay more in government spending for worse health care. That system is broken. We can agree on that. But we believe we should follow the example of other countries that spend less and get better outcomes. Better outcomes for me, better outcomes for them, better outcomes for all of you. Thank you.
Well, Tyson, I'm glad you finally care about the poorest among us. We have plenty of people here who can help you register as a Republican when we're done. The ACA, Tyson admits, I got the Democrats to admit that the ACA is broken. Not a lot of Republicans have been able to do that, but it is, and it was built entirely by them. The American healthcare system, the insurance industrial complex, again, every single policy has been passed by the most progressive of Democrat presidents, and it hurts us. Socialism hurts us. This is a case study in the failure of socialist policies. Please understand that. So, if it was poorly implemented, I wonder, well, can the Democrats implement anything? If there's nothing wrong with the policy, they just didn't implement it right. And I would suggest maybe not. Maybe they can't. So, The other thing I want to acknowledge is that it's President Trump who is making the structural changes necessary to make this system work better for everyone. We can go and increase subsidies like the Democrats would like to do and like they shut down our government for, and just keep crowding out the rest of our economy with healthcare expenditure. We can do that. We can keep transferring more wealth to the insurance companies. We can do that. Or we can instill free market competitive structures that force them to compete on both quality and price, that force them to innovate and make things better for all of us, all while making healthcare more accessible for every American.
That will conclude topic 2. I want to once again ask the audience to not make any noise during the speeches. Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to our final question before we get to our Q&A, and this question will go to the Republicans first, and it is, what would an effective and fair tax policy look like for the state of Utah? Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm back. Well, we as Republicans generally have an understanding with tax policy that we'd do better to eliminate the massive waste, fraud, and abuse typically allowed by Democrats than to tax you more. Aaron Mendenhall's trying to increase your taxes right now. I'm sure there's all sorts of things in Salt Lake City that we don't need to be funding. In the state of Utah, our #1 expenditure is on social services, being Medicaid and everything else. So there you go. I told you how to make that more efficient. We'd save Utahns millions of dollars every year if we implemented my policy. We'd also save millions and possibly even billions of dollars every year if we deported illegal immigrants and people who were abusing our social services. The second is public education. The third is higher education. Now, this is a fun one for me. Do you know that the University of Utah is currently offering a class called, you might have to help me out here, I think it's Black Trans Lesbian Marxist, parentheses. You're probably pro-Palestine too. I think government-subsidized trolling is maybe something we can end before we raise taxes. And we as Republicans generally have that understanding. Let's go into public transportation, which is 10% of the budget. Do you understand that UTA, factoring in the cost of buying a car, fuel, all of those other things, the social cost of public transportation in the state of Utah is 4 times that of the private cost of just buying a car and using public roads. That's all cost included. We can maybe make that a little bit better. There are all sorts of things that we can find in our government to make better, to make life cheaper for the rest of you, to leave more money in your pocket so you can invest in your family, your future, so you can build businesses, so you can plant your stake in the future of the United States and the state of Utah, so you can engage in communities by owning a home. That's what Republicans want for you. But Democrats will propose an alternative where we keep increasing taxes. We remain complacent to the abuse, to government-subsidized trolling like we see at the University of Utah. And ultimately, make an economy that doesn't work for you, that doesn't work for anyone. It works really well for illegal immigrants, it turns out. But it doesn't work very well for American citizens. It doesn't work very well for the middle class. It doesn't work very well for people who are seeking entry-level wages and entry-level housing. It works really well for the elites, like the people who own the insurance companies that they transfer approximately $1 trillion to every year. That's what Democrats will give you. So again, I reiterate, the Republican general framework for approaching taxes in the state of Utah needs to be to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse, that we may build a world and a government that works better for everyone. Thank you.
First, I want to start out by saying this waste, fraud, and abuse is coming from a Republican legislature. The Republicans have had a supermajority since the 90s. So if we want to start about who's choosing to spend your money, it's Republicans. That's my first thing. The Republicans have also, for the past 5 years, have chosen to cut income taxes. This is not something, even this year, they wanted to cut an additional 0.05%, which will cost $160 million, even when our governor is not asking for it. The fact is that we do need tax income. Right now, the state of Utah depends on 3 different taxes to fund our services. First is income tax, second is property tax, and third is sales tax. Now, the legislature, and I'm assuming they will as well, tell you that, let's cut income tax. You cut income tax, you have to raise property and sales tax. And now I want to explain a little bit about how taxes work. Income taxes are what's called a progressive tax. Those of us who make more pay more. Right now, the current income tax is about 4.5%. Sales tax, everyone pays. This is a regressive tax. The poorest among us, because they spend more of their paycheck, pay a higher percentage of their income. They will tell you all day, we'll cut your taxes. We'll cut your income tax. But they will raise your sales tax. This will affect all of you, and it will especially affect the poorest among us. They'll raise your property tax. Even as Utah has skyrocketing home prices, they'll raise your property tax. And the final thing is they'll talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. Again, that was passed by a Republican supermajority. But every tax cut comes with a cost. And it is a cost to programs that we use every day. Right now, the state of Utah has the lowest per pupil spending in K-12 education. They want to further cut that. When I was little, I qualified for a low-income preschool program. That has been cut by the Republican legislature. The program that taught me how to read and taught kids like me that weren't as advantageous to have the means to pay for a fancy preschool, that's gone. That has been cut. They cut income taxes. They'll cut spending to higher education. Now, he'll blame one individual class, but that's going to lead to tuition increases. That's going to lead to higher student debt. That's going to lead to less student services. It's going to lead to less research. The fact is that Utah has the opportunity to build itself up for the 21st century. But this is going to require investment in infrastructure. This is going to require investment in housing to solve the problem. This is going to require investment in higher education. The University of Utah is a reason why businesses are coming here. Go look at Research Park. They have cut research funding. If we keep cutting taxes and not funding these programs that are bringing people out here, we are affecting the future of the state of Utah. We're affecting our futures. We are affecting the futures of our parents and grandparents. And we're affecting the future of our future children. We believe that the legislature needs to realize that every tax cut comes with a cost. This is not a, we'll cut your taxes and nothing bad will happen. Thank you.
We're just ready to go? Ready to go?
Yeah, we're going to have 8 minutes for the response period here.
Okay. There's a lot of...
How about we're going to have we'll have the Republicans start this time.
Okay. Tyson, I sympathize with your story when you were a kid, because to be honest, you're right. But I'm going to be honest with you when I tell you that your entire argument rests on the assumption that every single tax dollar will be used correctly and for something that will be effective and actually support the average Utahn. The reality is that when you spend billions of dollars in an institution that fundamentally is extremely left-leaning, has classes like the one that Carson had, there's trips out here being sponsored to go out to Cuba and teach them socialist ideas. We have multiple teachers teaching us about privilege and woke ideas. So is that really the best use of our tax dollars here in a higher education? We can agree all day that infrastructure is something important. But I'll disagree with you that transportation is necessarily the best thing that we should invest in for UTA. It's one of the biggest expenditures in Utah. As Carson said, you pay more using that than if you had private use of cars or transportation yourself. The reality is that your entire argument has an assumption that every single tax dollar, whether you increase your property or income tax,
or are you just arguing? Like,
well, he's the one who. I'm arguing against this point. What are you talking about? Your entire argument rests upon the idea that every single tax dollar will be used effectively. I argue that not every single tax dollar is used effectively, and thus we have to cut the taxes. Did you know that here in Salt Lake County, we actually just raised our property taxes by 20%?
Can we respond?
Without
to what you're
the
saying?
income tax?
Could we hear from the other side, please, for a little bit?
Thank you. So I think the first thing that I would say to all of that is that government efficiency should not be a partisan thing. Obviously, the Democrats support ending wasteful programs, right? But that's not mutually exclusive with also having social welfare, right? And I think going back to your point about UTA, like let's think about what is the purpose of social welfare whenever we have a program. Like it's not necessarily to create the most efficient system, it's to create the best quality of life, right? So for UTA, people who use UTA like myself, I live off campus, I take the bus to class every single day. Obviously, it's not meant to be the most efficient way of transporting people. It's meant to give people who don't have, for example, a car like myself, an opportunity to come to school without having to walk whatever 2 miles uphill that I would have to otherwise, right? So that's the purpose of a system like that. It's not to necessarily be the most efficient thing. It's supposed to be improving people's quality of life. So,
Hey, did you know that Republicans made the progressive income tax? That's a Republican policy initiative.
Yeah, it's a
awesome,
good
so
policy.
we agree. Good policy.
It's a great policy. Did you know that the ACA is actually regressive in its tax incentives? That it gives higher
I
income
thought we were talking about
households?
state tax
Yeah, we're
policy.
talking about state tax policy.
I'm just asking.
Well, our number one expenditure is social welfare.
Our number one
Awesome.
expenditures, and by the way, 28% of the state of Utah is funded by the federal government.
By the way.
So it's important. This is important. And
So,
federal,
okay,
federal expenditure matters.
maybe it'd be good if we take a step
Yeah,
back
where do you
here
wanna go
and
with
I
this?
ask, do you guys support a progressive income tax? Do you support a progressive income tax, like in principle?
I think in principle, there's reasonable evidence to support a progressive income tax given the constraints of the structure of the American economy.
Okay, awesome. So then, what is your position on like how we should structure a tax code specifically, as opposed to like where do we disagree?
Well, I think right now where we're at is you guys are advocating for increasing taxes, and that we're advocating for decreasing waste, fraud, and abuse. And so if we're going to go back to the state of Utah, for example, you went to the UTA argument. Do you not think that we could do better at 4.5 times the social cost of private transportation? Like, surely we can look at that before we go, hey, we want to increase taxes by 20%, Salt Lake City.
So first off, I want to start with, never once did I say, let's raise taxes. I said we should stop cutting taxes.
exactly.
I think we should look at our expenditures, because first off, I think we agree that we should keep a balanced budget. Second of all, is talking about UTA, I also love UTA, is there are other benefits to it. It's not just that you get a ride. Every single person who's taking the train or bus, they're not on the road. This is saving people who drive cars money and time.
I mean, I don't know. I've had to stop for the train a lot of times. I don't feel like it saves me much time, but
Okay, let's have 100 extra
Okay,
cars on
well,
the road.
I don't know if you have a car.
kinda-
I don't have a car. I
being a
I
little
rely
facetious
on
on that
public transportation. And so, again, it's not meant to save people money. It's meant to provide people who don't have that opportunity.
right. But what I'm asking you is,
available
why can't you
transportation.
just support increasing the efficiency of UTA?
But we do support that.
We agree increasing
Okay,
efficiency.
then why do you? Then why is it that we can't cut taxes?
How
Why is
should-
it, the state of Utah has a fine budget right now.
How
We have
should-
surpluses.
how should we
Why can't we
increase
cut
efficiency?
taxes? Why can't we cut taxes to incentivize making everybody here, all of them, their lives better, giving them more money, giving them an ability to buy a home, to start a business, and people more broadly, like our parents?
So, what specifically should we do to increase efficiency of UTA?
I think, well, it's probably structural. Privatize it.
So
Oh.
you think that privatizing UTA would better align with the goals of UTA, which is to create a system where people without access to cars.
I think there's a world where it could. Yeah, absolutely.
So-
yeah, absolutely.
You think?
So I think we have to look at the purpose of UTA. UTA is not set up to make a lot of money because it's meant to build up Utah's economy. People rely on UTA, people use UTA, and this has revitalized our downtown. It has supported our suburbs. It has supported places all across the state.
Did you know
If
that
it
Salt Lake
was
City-
not for
Interrupt the
UTA,
other speakers, please.
the state of Utah would not be able to be a city where we can host things, where we can grow an economy around tourism, where we can grow an economy around business. This is something that businesses are seeking. This is important for the future.
Tyson, did you know that in Utah, Salt Lake City is the only major town in our state that would have population decreasing if it weren't for foreign immigration?
What does that have to do
What
with
are,
tax policy?
what are we doing to talk about tax policy?
What I'm saying. What I mean, you're saying that we could revitalize downtown. You're saying that we need these policies to revitalize a place that's good for Americans. But that's simply not true. Salt Lake right now is being built for foreign immigrants. It's not being built for Americans at all.
We're talking about tax policy.
All the investment, yeah, well, sure, but it's inherently tied. If you can't conceptualize how these things are connected, I guess that says a lot about. the
I
government.
understand what
But-
you're saying, as in, like, if we're trying to cut taxes, then that means we're cutting social programs, and so therefore we won't have to increase other taxes. I see what you're saying, but our fundamental disagreement is that those social programs serve a very important purpose. UTA being a great
What's the
example.
purpose?
But there's a
Okay,
fourth-
What's the purpose?
The purpose is to increase quality of life for Utahns.
there's
No,
a
but that's
fourth-
what I'm saying is it's just all of this expenditure is increasing the quality of life for foreign immigrants. It's not for Utahns at all. All right, Tyson. Terrific, Tyson.
I'm trying not to talk over.
appreciate
Can I ask the moderators to read the question one more time? I think we need to restructure what we're talking about.
What would an effective and fair tax policy look like for the state of Utah?
Okay. Our taxes lead to our spending. So I want to ask, first off, is what would be... Sorry, let me rephrase that real quick. Would you support cutting K through 12 programs to support a tax cut?
Well, I support cutting programs that are found in the University of Utah first. I support
K through
making
12.
UTA more efficient.
Can you explain
I
what that
support
would look like exactly? Or what are you trying to
so many
ask
different
here?
things.
For-
Deporting illegal immigrants.
For,
and stealing our wealth.
for example, would you support cutting the budgets teachers have for their classrooms?
I think there's a lot of things we can cut first, Tyson.
No.
Incredible
I'm
Ian, what do you want to cut?
This
What do
is
you
on
want
the
to cut
budget.
first?
This is on the current budget. They're cutting this. Do you support that?
Time
Again,
has expired. Thank you.
All right, we'll now move into our closing statements for this topic.
Do you want me to take it?
Republicans. Yeah, the Republicans may go first on this one.
That's Nick's. Okay, I reiterate, the Democrats aren't interested in efficiency. They're not interested in cutting your taxes and leaving more money in your pocket. I think actually the Democrat Party might be the biggest hole in our wallet. It seems that they just open up a drain and all the money leaves and it goes to who knows what. I can't really tell, Ian. And that's where I'm saying, like, are Republicans supporting tax cuts? Absolutely. Are they supporting increased efficiency? Absolutely. Are they looking at programs that don't need as much funding as they're being given, or the incentive structures could be better? Yeah, that's what they're doing. And I'm going to tell you right now, Governor Cox, one of his biggest initiatives is increasing literacy rates. So they act like the Republican Party is leaving K for 12 behind. That's not at all true in our state. It's not true in the slightest. But what is true is that they're doing nothing to make your life better. They will continue to dump more of your tax money into services that are only going to get worse, that you're only going to have less access to over time. And Republicans are saying, hey, we believe in a government that can provide services to all of you, that can make your life better, but it doesn't have to be at some unrealistic sum of money, that we can do this in a way that's good for you. That's good for every Utahn here. Again, that puts more money in your pocket so that you can go and pursue owning a home, building a community, building a family, hopefully, having a career, and ultimately a Utah that works better for every person here. And you know what that means? Because they want to let so many immigrants into this country. Ultimately, it means that we have a country and a state that is better for people who didn't live here, who uprooted and want to build their homes here. And that means a better future for all of us, including the immigrants they care so much about, and more importantly, Utah citizens.
To start, I want to say I think us Democrats have it pretty good. Somehow we're the cause to blame for all the budget problems from a Utah legislature that's been a Republican supermajority since the 90s. We agree that there should be efficiency, but I want to start off with that. This is a Republican supermajority-led legislature. Sorry, we're talking about state tax policy.
State is the best budget.
The fact is that our tax cuts have a cost. And now we'll talk about, we're going to eliminate this one random class, and that will cover the $160 million tax cut we're proposing. But the history has not shown that. For the last 5 legislatures, the legislature has cut income taxes. They have not cut waste, fraud, and abuse. They have cut programs. Now, the Republican Party can go out there and say, we support our teachers, we support K-12 education. But they have cut programs. They have cut preschool for kids like me, low-income kids. They've cut teacher budgets for classroom materials. My mom and dad are both educators. And I'll tell you, their budget does not cover the cost of resources that they give to their students. They have cut higher education. And it's not cutting those classes, it's cutting research. That drives our economy. It's cutting student services that we all use. It's cutting the base pay that leads to tuition increases. The fact is that every time we cut taxes, it has a cost. Obviously, I don't think we should have a 100% tax rate. I'm a liberal. But there is a cost associated when we raise and when we lower taxes. This isn't just free money we're giving Utahns. It's money that we're redirecting from programs that help all of us and giving it to primarily the richest Utahns among us. I can tell you, drive down south of the valley, that's the people who are going to benefit most from these tax cuts.
Thank you. Your time has expired. Yes.
For our next section, we'll be addressing 5 questions that the audience has sent in. Both sides will have a minute and a half to explain their sides, and then,
We'll move on to the next question.
then we'll move on to the next question. Okay.
All right, this first question is for the Democrats first. Regardless of political affiliation, Gen Z's top issue is affordability, housing, and the economy. Tell us, what are your policy plans to ensure Gen Z can afford the United States?
I think the number one thing when it comes to affordability is housing, right? And obviously, we can talk about policy solutions like subsidizing housing, right? But I think the root cause of that problem is a lack of supply of housing. And so we need permitting reform. This is my position. I think we need to reform the permitting process to allow for the construction of more homes faster without more bureaucratic, stuff to slow that down. And I think over the long term, maybe that policy position isn't as sexy as saying, hey, I'm going to freeze rent or stuff like that. I think that is the solution that's going to be the most effective in the long term.
The Republicans would like to respond.
Thanks for explaining the Republican position, Ian.
It's actually the Democrat position.
It's
'cause I
not. We
explained it.
actually like to cut red tape and like the libertarian take on your own property. We can move on to the next question. That's all.
All right, so just to clarify, we're going to do this all seated just for time purposes. Is that
Works for me.
That's fine.
great?
Next question, which the Republicans will begin, is what is the justification behind U.S. intervention in foreign nations and violating sovereignty? And what gives the United States the right to be the arbiter of world politics?
Can you repeat that, the last half of that question? Sorry.
Absolutely. What gives the United States the right to be the arbiter of world politics?
I mean, when it comes down to it, we are the #1 nation in the world with the greatest economy, and we have the greatest ability to make anyone prosperous in this country. The reality is that getting involved foreign, I'm assuming this is pretty relevant to the capture of Maduro, the harsh dictator of Venezuela. The reality is that we liberated those people in Venezuela. We helped a country that was one of the poorest, inflation-ridden, and we are now instituting a democracy there where they can flourish with all of their economic prowess that they could have. The U.S. should be allowed to intervene anywhere it wants as long as it helps the people who live in that country as well. And it also helps the U.S. dollar in ensuring that we can maintain our power in the world.
Do you mind if we address that as well? Yeah. Awesome. So I think we can agree that America's awesome and we should use our power wisely. I think the difference in opinion is how we should be using that power and what best serves American interests. Because when we see things that the Trump administration has done, such as like deposing a leader of Venezuela, under the guise of, like creating democracy, whatever, in Venezuela, when it's really just about oil. Like everyone can see that that's just about oil. Or trying to take over Greenland when we can accomplish every single stated goal that the Trump administration has said they want with Greenland without having to destroy NATO or have territorial control over Greenland. These are not actual policy positions that benefit the United States, globally speaking. And I think the question is really about how we should be wielding our power, and we can see that the Trump administration policies are really not it.
Do we have a little bit more time, like 10 seconds? All right, perfect. The Republicans used this playbook once before. They said they were going to depose a dictator, and we went to Iraq. And Iraq's in a great place now, flourishing democracy in the Middle East. The Republicans did a real good job with that one.
We want to give both sides the opportunity to respond one more time. You have 90 seconds.
90 seconds? I can take it.
You don't have to use the full 90 seconds if you don't
Yeah.
want to.
Okay, sorry, just give me the summary of the question again.
Yep. What is the justification between United States intervention in foreign nations and violating sovereignty? What gives the United States the right to be the arbiter of world politics?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like Ian made the argument that Maduro was the sovereign leader of Venezuela. I think that's a weird thing to say. I mean, people are parading in the streets there. We'll see how it goes. I'm typically not terribly interventionist either, but when they execute it perfectly, it's kind of hard to be mad. So
That
that's
doesn't
one
mean
thing.
that it's
And I'll say
justified.
the other thing with Greenland. I don't know if any of you watched the president's speech in Davos, but I mean, he made it pretty clear that NATO is not capable of defending Greenland. The United States covers most of their budget. They have essentially no military capability. And it doesn't make sense for us to build defensive infrastructure over Greenland if it is, in fact, of national security interest for another country. If we're going to do that, it should be on our own terms. And I think that we can engage in an economic transaction with Denmark to obtain Greenland, and we can pursue those goals and those ends without abolishing NATO. In fact, I think it will strengthen NATO substantially, and that was the president's argument.
Can I respond really fast to that?
You have 90
So
seconds.
I think I think we shouldn't just say all foreign intervention is bad or all foreign intervention is good, right? Every time we consider something like that, it's a cost-benefit analysis, right? And so I think what's really telling is looking at the reasons why the Trump administration justified their action in Venezuela specifically. It was not about getting rid of Maduro as a terrible dictator. It was because Maduro was not opening Venezuela up to American oil. Oil should never be the reason for any foreign policy intervention ever. America is the world's largest oil producer. And so to say that the United States needs Venezuelan oil is just that's a complete fallacy, completely not even based in evidence whatsoever. And when it comes to Greenland, right, I think in a world, let's say we snap our fingers and now we have control of Greenland, sure, would that be beneficial for the United States? I don't know that it would be a huge difference, but the process of getting from here to there matters, right? And so when we say we want to buy Greenland and we're going to take it over whether you like it or not, Denmark, that does real, lasting, and permanent damage to our alliances, and that is a consideration, right? We have to work with our allies rather than just saying, we're going to do this whether you like it or not, and eventually in 10 years or 20 years from now, when we find that they don't want to be our friends anymore, we should not be surprised because we did this to ourselves.
Do we have a little extra time?
10 seconds.
I'll also point out Iraq was also executed perfectly, as they say. And second of all, we deployed Maduro, but he put his VP in. So
Yeah, there is no
a lot of real
democratic
change there.
process that's happening.
We should just ask actually.
Okay, our next question is, would you support allowing insurance companies to cross state lines and allowing more competition for buyers to have? And that will go to the Democrats first. You'll have a minute and a half to respond.
I'm not exactly sure what that entails.
Yes, we support that.
Say the question again.
Would you support allowing insurance companies to cross state lines and allowing more competition for buyers,
So
for insurance buyers?
maybe it'll help answer this question if we explain what our policy is. So we're in favor of a public option for healthcare, which basically means that the government is going to offer insurance to compete with private companies. And so we're preserving that free market aspect that the Republicans love, and that I think everyone here would argue is a good thing as long as it's serving the interest of American citizens, right? So that's the first part, is the public healthcare option to lower prices through free market competition. And the second part of that is negotiation with drug companies so that we can fix the systemic problem that we have of too expensive drugs, right? We look in other countries, we see that they pay lower prices, and the difference is that they regulate drug companies and we don't. And so the drug companies are using America to get profit, and so we need to fix that system so that the United States has an effective healthcare system. That's our position.
All right. I just want to briefly say, the United States built Venezuela's oil infrastructure. The president has made it very clear.
Please keep your answers
The
relevant to the
president has
question
made it
we were
very clear
discussing.
that we're reinvesting revenue
Carson,
back into their country.
keep your answer relevant to the question we were discussing.
That being said, yeah, I mean, you understand my framework. My framework is generally that of increasing free market competition. I see no reason for the over-regulated insurance companies. By the way, that's what Democrats did. They made them over-regulated. They decided everything they can do. I see no reason for them to not be able to compete across state lines. I see every reason for insurance to become more efficient, more competitive, and more focused on delivering positive healthcare outcomes for the American people.
The Democrats like to have another 90 seconds to respond, or should we move on to the next question?
I think we can move on. I'll send off with, I think we agree that insurance companies should be able to compete across state lines, although that's not a full solution.
And I think we agree that free competition is a good thing in principle.
Republicans, do you have anything to add?
I'm just glad the Democrats are finally saying free market is good.
Okay. Our next question. Trump's goal was to deport criminals, and if there are any illegal immigrants that have not committed any crimes, why bother deporting them? The Republicans will start.
Of course. I don't think that being a criminal or not, I mean, at the end of the day, illegal immigration is illegal. I really don't have a question to tell any of you. I mean, at the end of the day, if you came here illegally, you shouldn't be in this country. You're leeching off billions of dollars of the American citizens. You are infinitely making us poorer every single day, every single year of how much you pay. And the reality is that there's no extent to which how long you've been here and how much you've worked and how much you've contributed that tells you you belong in this country and that you become an American citizen. At the end of the day, what are we going to do with maybe the 2-3 million people who have been here for 20 years working hard? What about the next 3 million? What about the next 5-6 million? We lose our country and we're going to lose a lot more than we gain. The reality is if we gradually deport people, there are studies done that we can effectively replace all the low-skilled labor and ensure that American citizens are prosperous in the long run.
I want to add to that a little bit too. Milton Friedman made an amazing argument. He said this country was built on the backs of immigrants, but it was before we were a welfare state, during a time when they worked, it benefited all of us, and that's just no longer the truth. And so there's really 3 reasons immigration enforcement is vital. The first one is the census data manipulation. We cannot have people from foreign countries coming to this country and disproportionately benefiting Democrat districts. We cannot allow billions of dollars of social service abuse to happen like what we saw in Minnesota. And I'm losing the third reason, but there's at least 2 major reasons why immigration enforcement is important. Thanks, guys.
Democrats would like to respond.
Yeah, I can start. First off, I think that someone coming to this country, working, contributing is a great sign that they'll be able to do so if we give them citizenship or legal status. In addition, when we give them legal status, they can pay taxes. And they can contribute even more, and I'm sure most of them would be happy to do so. I also think it's important to note that our immigration enforcement does cost money. Next year, ICE will have a larger budget than all but 2 militaries in the world. Talk about waste, fraud, and abuse, and that they are targeting those who aren't committing crimes, that are contributing to our economy and supporting our industries.
And I just want to add something really fast, is that I think we both agree that we have a problem, which is that there are millions of illegal immigrants in this country. And I think where we disagree is what the nature of that problem is. The Democrat side is arguing that the problem is the system that has meant that these people are undocumented as opposed to having legal status. And so we need to reform the system and provide a pathway to legal status for these people. And in fact, we should prioritize these people who are already living in the United States because, first of all, they already have a connection to America as opposed to someone who's applying, elsewhere. That's the importance of a legal pathway. But then also because we value immigration, right? And I think there's policy questions that arise from that, like should immigrants receive welfare? But the core question of is American values fundamentally centered around immigration? I think that is, history tells us that is
Time has
true.
expired for this question. Would the Republicans like to respond, or should we move on to the next question?
I remember the third reason now. So there's a disproportionate competition for entry-level wages in housing. It's not, immigrants aren't coming here and competing with millionaires for their jobs and houses. They're competing for your jobs and your homes. And so, that's an important thing is we got to work on the middle class. The other thing that Terrific Tyson spoke about was the ICE budget. And the thing is sure, it's a large budget, but we also allowed more immigrants into this country, unobserved, undiscerned, than any country probably ever in the world. Of course, it's an expensive problem that was created by the Democrats when they gave the whole world a false promise of a future in the United States, when they didn't secure that future, and they just left them here so that, I suspect that they could abuse welfare, and that they could maybe manipulate the census data so that the Democrats have more votes, more congressional apportionment. That's a problem. That cannot be tolerated. And I want to make it very clear, it's not the immigrants that are a force of evil. It's what the Democrats have done with them. It's the tool that the immigrants have become. And furthermore, the low standards that we have for social protections of immigrants is not something we should be satisfied with as Americans. And we can discern the kind of immigrants that come here. We can discern and get people who benefit our country. The lack of discernment doesn't do anything for any of us. And we leave them in these low institutional protection positions where they have no ability to negotiate or compete for a better life in this country. And that's what we believe. That's the American value there. I'm done with Democrat indentured servants. I want real institutional protections for people that we have discerned can actually benefit this country.
Democrats, you may have another 90 seconds to respond.
I think no better way to discern if somebody's been here living and working. Let's give them legal status. Second of all, they said that this is gonna take jobs, and they're not competing with millionaires. That's true. I'm not necessarily think they're competing. Miami boat lift study, very famous study. Hundreds of thousands of immigrants arrived to Miami, once again, flooding Miami's labor pool with non-high school educated workers that had come straight from Cuba. And what did they find? Wages at every single education level either did not go down or increased. This isn't hurting average Americans. In fact, it is benefiting average Americans to have people who come here, who start businesses, who work, and who contribute.
I think also we can both agree that borders matter, right? And that's why having a functional immigration system is so important. So we can actually we can have background checks for immigrants. The Trump administration loves to talk about how they're sending their rapists and criminals, which objectively is not true. But if that is a problem, then if we have a reformed immigration system that addresses that, then we can actually solve the problem. So I think the really dangerous part of this is that the Trump administration ran on deporting criminals, and they lied to the American people in the 2024 campaign, because we see now that they're not just deporting criminals. They're deporting pretty much anybody that they can get their hands on, right? And so while the American people support law and order, they support the rule of law, they support borders.
Your time has expired for this question.
Okay, awesome.
That concludes the debate. Please give everyone a round of applause.
I'm going to take a moment to close us out here. Thank you all who came in the audience today. I also want to say thank you to our 6 participants on stage today. I've been here at the Hinckley Institute for 5 years. This is the first group of students who have been organized enough to put on such a conversation. So Tyson, Ian, Addie, James, Dalen, Carson, thank you very much. On your way out, I just encourage you all, find ways to get involved in the issues that matter to you. We have a tabling event, or a little table here from Ignite Utah, which is all about getting Gen Z voters, folks in this room, engaged in the issues they care about and with candidates who they can believe in. So stop by, talk with them, talk with our participants, and stay involved here at the Hinckley Institute. Thank you for being here.
You guys, I was going to say, shake some hands.